let's jump back in.
Let's go from the start just to make sure. Let's go from the top.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to the NFA Podcast, your weekly podcast for all things news and tech related. My name is Nish, and this is Frackers. And on this weekly podcast, you will get everything that you need to not make financial decisions because we do not give financial advice. Welcome to the show.
Everything you don't need to make financial decisions right here. Coming up now
right here,
in this,
right
this
now.
half hour. Right here, right now. No financial advice. No information that makes sense at all. So again, this is so boring. For the fourth week we're doing, there's so much happening this week and we want to cram it in 30 minutes. So how are we going to start? I think let's go with ladies first and then see how far that takes us.
Okay, sounds good. So obviously every week, if you're new here, we kind of bridge the gap for you guys between the traditional finance and fintech areas, and also go into your traditional finance and emerging tech areas and crypto, which is really fun. This week, there's been some really big updates with Binance, because for the last two episodes, we've talked about how CZ was initially advising Kyrgyzstan 2 weeks ago.
CZ, the founder of Binance, just for those that are not on a first name basis with CZ.
Yes,
Nish.
of course. If you're not on a first name basis with CZ, what are you doing with your life? So last week, CZ started advising Pakistan and their government, and that was like a huge thing. It was like blowing up my entire LinkedIn. And this week, Binance put up a tweet saying that they are now advising multiple government bodies. So question is that still CZ's role, or is that separate to what he's doing? Do you think it's just for namesake? What do you think the move is here?
I think officially he doesn't have a role anymore. He's the founder and majority shareholder, I believe, still. A multi-billionaire. And 2 weeks ago, you told me that he was advising Kyrgyzstan. And then last week, Pakistan. So you can understand all the jokes are going to be, he's running out of stunts.
Binance done.
But I don't think he has an official role. So when Binance announced this news that they are advising countries, I think officially that's not him. But I'm sure I'm hoping he's influenced because he's super smart. So you would want him actually to be an advising role.
Yeah, I don't feel so comfortable with Binance advising governments because Binance has been kicked out of so many countries and lost their license in literally all of the major and trusted countries. They've lost it in the US, they've lost it in the Netherlands?
I think China first, and then definitely in Western Europe, most countries. But that's because of MiCA, also the new financial regulations.
And in Singapore. They lost it in Singapore as well, where Binance was even initially
I think
based
they never
at one
even
point.
had the license, but they were just told that they would not stand a chance if they would file for a license. And what MAS then does, Monetary Authority Singapore, it sort of indicates to you that if you file for a license, you will not get it. And that is bad on your record. Whereas if you withdraw and try it later, there is no record of you being denied the first time. But I do have to say that in their defense, that the new CEO of Binance, or the successor to CZ, Richard Teng, he was at MAS, Monetary Authority Singapore, before, and he worked at Singapore Exchange. So he's got a lot of experience on the regulatory side and on the exchange side. So I'm quite sure that he will stick to regulations going forward. And Binance does have an incredible track record on innovation. So, doesn't have to be a bad idea that Binance advises. But of course, they're going to advise more pro-crypto regulations, I'm pretty sure.
Well, what's interesting, I found this quite conflicting. So, Sheikh Maktoum's media office, so this is the ruler of Dubai, right? So His Highness Sheikh Maktoum bin Mohammed bin Rashid Al Maktoum. He is the ruler of Dubai and the Prime Minister, Minister of Finance as well. So obviously plays a huge role in the regulations in the Middle East. And he met with the COO of Crypto.com to talk about payment adoption and crypto adoption in the region. But they did that in 2021 with Binance. We were working with CZ to get him on the cover of Entrepreneur magazine, and that was their MENA entry, And so I'm just curious why they didn't open up the conversation with Binance, especially if Binance is now advising governments.
I think they will probably be talking to several. I'm assuming that if it leaks, and it's an official leak, right? It's not even a leak if it's publication
It's a
by
press
the
release.
authorities. It's a press release. Then they want to highlight Crypto.com's involvement. But Crypto.com, I think, invests a lot of money. So it could be that, the UAE, especially Dubai, is inviting Crypto.com to be more active in the Gulf region through Dubai. Because we do know that they spend a lot of money on Formula One, for crying out loud. I think hundreds of millions a year. So they're sponsoring races and everything. So they're very active.
Yeah, and the press release did say that the Dubai economic agenda aims to generate an average of 100 billion dirhams in new economic value annually through digital transformation projects.
But it's interesting that the Dubai is so active doing this and also making a press release. I think that is really striking. I mean, in the EU, you would never find somebody on ministerial levels, government levels, meeting with crypto exchanges and then making a press release from it.
Yeah, I mean it's really interesting, right? Because they've been the crypto hub for quite a while. That's why we moved here, because I saw so many projects that were firstly building here, secondly networking here, and at the time when we moved here, they were all scams, which was really sad. But the government of Dubai founded the Ministry of Blockchain in 2017. And they already implemented it in education, healthcare, as well as their real estate. So, it's only upwards and onwards. And what was it? 2 years ago, they partnered with Ripple, or maybe even last year, and had this massive metro station that said crypto means business with the Ripple logo. So they are doing a lot with crypto and a lot with these projects.
And also, of course, Ras Al Khaimah, the two Emirates up, so above Dubai is Sharjah and above that is Ras Al Khaimah, where the project where you and I are both an advisor, tracer, of which I'm the co-founder, is regulated by RAKDAO. I have to stick up here for Ras Al Khaimah. They are the first, as far as I know, one of the first jurisdictions in the world that regulates DAOs as a legal entity. So you can set up a legal entity and become a DAO, which means that it's more like an association where the members, the token holders, determine the outcome of the whole project and appoint a board. I think
they
it's
don't
really
regulate tokens yet, right?
If you're not doing a project, then if it's you like an exchange and those kind of things, then you would be under VARA in Dubai. If you issue separate projects like in Metaverse or Web3 gaming, and we're doing real world assets, then you can regulate under RAKDAO. But if you do anything where you're doing custodian accounts and you're holding other people's assets, then you regulate it through VARA in Dubai.
Okay. You said real world assets and my heart dropped. Can we just have a moment of silence for mantra and the Om token?
Did you have any? Because clearly
No.
I don't. You didn't have any because I didn't hear you about it ever.
No, I didn't. I did at one point. I think it was like 2 years ago, but then it didn't move and then I got into Solana. So
what happened with Mantra? What really happened? Because I can tell you later what I heard the news was, but I'd rather hear from you
there's
what
so
you saw
many
on your
stories
end.
going on. So I don't know if you saw the interview with the founder and CoffeeZilla, the YouTuber.
Yes, I saw that.
But basically, he was like, no, it's none of our investors and market makers. And every week, we just so happen to talk about how much of a scam market makers are. But he did blame this. Well, actually, no, he brought up the fact that the team tokens had not been sold, but they were sold through an OTC deal, which for you guys that don't know, OTC is over-the-counter deal where you sell your tokens to a syndicate or a VC just to get liquidity. It's very common in the crypto VC space, but these OTC deals, a lot of people don't even know that they happen. For example, if an influencer invests in a project, they can do an OTC deal and continue to post about the project, get immediate upfront cash, and the person that's got their OTC deal is still vested according to the influencer's vesting schedule. And so it's a win-win situation most of the times, but clearly in this time, I don't think it was. I think it might have backfired.
It's also not great if you're already publicly listed, right? If you're listed on an exchange and you're doing OTC deals at the same time, I think it makes it more complex. It would be
But that's
normal
the
if
point
you
of
do
them.
Yeah, but the point would be normally in traditional tech, you have you funding rounds of your company, and those are private deals. Then once you go public, you actually stop doing deals where you're selling outside of the regulated exchanges. So you have a phase where you do private sales, and you have a phase when you go public, and literally after that, all the transactions are public. So
So
that's the difference.
yes, but it's one of those things that are welcome in crypto. You know, it's almost like a justifiable act because when influencers do this, they're like, well, at least I didn't dump on my followers, you know? So,
In traditional finance, you would have to disclose, a company would have to disclose when these kind of
mhm,
transactions happen. And then the idea would be that all token holders or shareholders would get informed at the same time so that you have
no.
equal access to information. I think that's the crucial part. And when you don't have that equal access to information at the same time, it's an unfair and unbalanced market.
It is. It is. And right now it's very unregulated. I remember this VC that I was advising last year. They were doing OTC deals, but that's how they got the OpenAI deal at 200 mil because one of the major VCs had got in and they said, well, we want more liquidity to, invest in other projects. And they
Uh-huh.
basically sold around $200,000 of their OpenAI investment
No,
to
but
this
that's
smaller
great because
VC.
that OpenAI is still private, and that's when you can do those things. Once you are
Hmm.
public, you can't do that. So I that actually
Yeah.
proves my point.
Yeah, yeah. No, I get it. I get it. But for these tokens, a lot of times and I was helping them with their marketing, a lot of
Uh-huh.
times with social media, whenever they would put up a post saying, oh, we got this deal at this rate, projects would be like, this isn't us, it's a scam. Whereas in reality, it really was their token. They didn't even know that it was being sold through OTC.
I get it. That just one of their token holders that was an early
Mm-hmm.
backer did a deal and did it
Mm-hmm.
did it basically decentralized one on
The
a
decentralized way, yeah.
decentralized way.
Yeah.
Yeah, and in this case, what I saw happening, you tell me if I got it wrong, is that then I just saw these articles that Mantra dropped, and then people looked in why, and it
Mm-hmm.
came out that somebody moved a huge amount of tokens from one wallet to an exchange. I forgot which exchange actually. It's not
OKX.
the to OKX.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when people saw that it happened because I guess people were tracking that wallet, right? I'm assuming.
I'm
And
sure, yeah.
and then people started thinking, okay, before they sell on Monday or whatever, we're going to sell on Sunday. So on Sunday, people started selling the token, expecting a whale, a large token holder, to start selling in the upcoming days, weeks, or months. And that's when the price dropped. And also, this wallet started selling, if my
Yeah.
information is correct. So then
Yeah.
it's just accumulating like a snowball of people selling.
I
It's
have to say
horrific.
their approach to this has been so off. Like there's no transparency. They've gone in and basically flooded the media with random interviews. So it's making it so hard to even track the story properly.
Yeah.
So my recommendation, if you do want to track it, is follow one source. Because if you keep watching all the interviews, you'll get bits and pieces and to be honest, they're not gonna add up,
I
you
still
know?
really like CoffeeZilla. I don't understand the name. Coffee and Mozilla.
I love his stuff. I
Yeah,
think his
his
content is amazing.
it's so thorough. I'm
Mm-hmm.
amazed that there's not someone else in traditional media, at the Wall Street Journal or your Financial Times, doing these kind of investigative reporting stories because it's so good, and he gets everybody
Yeah,
to talk to him because I think he's
yeah.
fair. I think he's very fair.
But I don't you feel like traditional finance doesn't really need that one single media outlet just to
No,
report
no, they
scams?
should do it about crypto. I think it's such a huge asset
Yeah,
class. How can the
100%.
I think Wall Street Journal, Financial Times, traditional, and I can now go at lead side and the German ones, the French, whatever. I'm sure in China there are
Yeah.
publications, in Japan that I can't read, should have like a crypto dedicated area. Like my big thing, and this is again Uncle Mikey talking about the old days. I stopped giving interviews in the mid 90s when I started my first ISP to the science journalists because in the beginning, internet was being covered by science reporters. And I said, I want to
Oh,
be covered by
wow.
media reporters. So when we have media reporters coming in, I will do more interviews, but I will not give interviews to science reporters because it will be stuck in the science section that nobody reads. And they said, how can you call this a medium? I had media reporters telling me the internet was never a medium, but it was just a means of transport. And I was just going, no, radio will go over it, video will go over it, telephony will go over it, you stupid. And that took 5 years. But it was a 5 year period when we moved from the science section to the media section. And of course, headlined by the scandal section, investigative journalism for all the crimes and supposedly going on the internet, right? It was just as with crypto now. They highlight the
Mm-hmm.
scams and all the bad things. And then they never talk about an old lady that sent me a letter, an email, Like finally she was able to get in touch with her grandchildren in New Zealand, that otherwise she would get one letter a month, and now they could send an email every week. And all these really cool, they never make the news. The ones where someone got scammed, those make the news. But
Yeah,
this
of
is my
course. Bad
traditional
news
media rant.
always,
End of traditional
always.
media rant.
But that's
Yeah.
that's human nature. Bad news always draws attention. That's why what we used to call them in Houston was rubberneckers. But basically, you know, when you're driving down the highway and there's an accident, everyone
Yeah.
slows down because they're rubbernecking the accident. You know, everyone likes bad news.
The Americans are so good at rubbernecking and those kind of phrases. So that's interesting, that I'm really thinking that with Mantra, we don't really know what happened because there's not a clear, concise story. I think
Yeah.
CoffeeZilla got close, I think.
I'm gonna keep following it though. Obviously, ZachXBT, for those that aren't native in crypto, I would recommend following his account so that you know how to stay safe if you're just journeying in. But
It's a tip I
basically,
got from
this
Nish,
guy.
by the way. For everybody, I started following him based on Nish's tip on X.
Oh, really?
Really, really good. Yes.
Oh, I love him. I love him. I love his work. He's like a godsend into the crypto space. He basically covers a lot of scams, a lot of founders to be wary of, any wallets that are linked to previous scams that are launching
He
new
had really good
tokens.
tips, really good insights into the Bybit hack as well. Maybe you recall just a few weeks ago. That was
He's
him
the
as
one
well.
that helped identify who it was. So he actually worked with Arkham Intelligence. So last week, we had some connection issues and we had to reshoot that part about the Chinese tariffs. And we also didn't want to bore, you guys that are listening in. But there was one point that I had in my notes, but I couldn't find the source of the article too. And it was that China basically lifted the IP laws and against luxury brands. So all of the factories could, copy whatever they were doing. Now, I didn't realize how big a deal this was until this week when my entire social media feeds, LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, I don't even use Facebook, even that's flooded, and Instagram are all flooded with these factories being like, here's how you can find, whatever, and your Hermes Birkin. And I'm like, what is going on? And I don't know if you saw, but the Italian prime minister was like, we need a meeting with the US. I cannot justify what's going on. And she basically
She had a meeting with Trump yesterday,
she
I
did?
believe.
Oh,
Yeah, Maloney.
okay.
Prime Minister
Quick
Maloney was
action.
in the Oval Office. Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting lady. And the result will be, well, it only will stop, right, when the US and China strike a deal on the trade.
Well, I think the floodgates are open now, unfortunately. And it's not a secret that everything was made in China. It isn't. I think it was told last year that the Miss Dior bag is actually manufactured for $54 from Chinese factories.
much?
And this was investigative journalism. Yeah. I think it was Business Insider that covered it. But obviously they sell those bags for like 1,500 or 2,000. So
Or you buy the design. Let's...
well,
I always laugh at when that happens, but in my defense, not my defense, in their defense, I learned a few years ago when Meryl, my girlfriend, was a travel influencer. She did some cooperations with a company called Rebel, where you can sell and trade secondhand bags. I think bags, purses, I think they would be called. I'm amazed at how seriously these things appreciate in value if you've got the right ones. I never knew. I always thought they were like cars. They're like the female version of what guys have with cars, very often girls have with bags, and they just depreciate in value. Not true. You buy the right bags, these things appreciate in value. It's unbelievable.
and
That
who's
shocked
that?
me.
There's someone, one first lady, somewhere in Asia, either Bhutan
Melania.
or no, or Malaysia. But she has the largest Birkin collection. And if you don't know, Birkin bags they appreciate in value drastically. And
And
obviously,
they don't sell them to anybody. That's also, you have to sort of apply to be able to buy them.
well,
They're
they
not just for sale.
basically say that it's used for money laundering now because of the amount of black money that they're taking in. But I just found it so funny that people are using these tools to launder money through. But I guess
Birkin
watches, bags, all the
Yeah.
same.
The thing is that with the trade tariffs, hopefully they will find a solution for the Chinese USA, because I love the fact you called it the Chinese tariffs, because I said it the other week too, and someone said, the US started those. I said, well, that's just rumors. I think pretty much we all understand who started this. And the whole thing is just making investors nervous. And I learned a long time ago, a nervous investor is a bad investor. Doesn't matter what category. So I'm hoping things will settle down, that we get some clarity. We get a resolution.
It is now.
We get closure on the whole China-US tariff thing. So for my news, I had really only a few short snippets that I would love to hear your feedback on. So seriously, the most important thing I want to cover is this. Have you heard that OpenAI CEO and co-founder, Sam Altman, speculates on OpenAI starting a competitor for X?
Oh, God.
Because X bought XAI, Elon Musk company X, bought his own AI company, merged, at a valuation of 110 billion, by the way. 110 billion, but there was still 15 billion debt on the balance sheet of Twitter. So take that off. So, long story short, the moment has now arrived when the software companies are saying, hey, we need data as well. Elon Musk is using all the data that comes out of Twitter to build a better Grok, better XAI. Yeah. So Sam Altman says, hey, we're going to build our own Twitter, our own X, so we can have better data coming in for a better OpenAI. So I thought that was interesting, but I think it's bluff. This is my take. I think it's bluff.
I don't even know who uses Threads anymore. You remember Mark Zuckerberg tried to compete with Twitter? I keep getting notifications and I'm like, why are you still here? I
cannot
think it's
state
just
enough how much I hate Threads, because on Threads, I just want a feed of the people that I follow. But the default setting is you get whatever they think I should follow. And I then manually always have to click on follow the people that I want to follow and see their feed. It always goes to this, clickbait, basically. It says clickbait.
Yeah.
And it's pathetic.
The only meta platform I like is WhatsApp and Instagram.
Yeah.
And I don't think that's going to change. Even WhatsApp's now annoying me with the whole AI thing because they're really trying to shove it down everyone's throats.
When you search for something, I tried to search for a chat that I had. Actually, it was with you looking for links. And it started searching AI on Meta. I'm like, I know who she is.
It's turned into like Microsoft Teams. Or Outlook. Like if I type your name in, it'll give me everything except for you.
I heard of a guy that had a fight with his husband, which actually I thought was funny. And he said to his husband, this relationship has become like Microsoft Teams. And I thought it was so funny because everybody understands what he means. And it's such an incredible, horrible thing to say. And of course, the other guy was in tech. They're both in tech. Yeah. So that was, you're saying my family is like Microsoft Teams? He said, no, whole relationship. And your family is like Skype being brought into it that I never bought into. I never wanted that in the package and all those kind of things. So I thought it was one of the best gay fights I've ever heard, was calling your boyfriend out or your husband out for
Microsoft Teams.
The relationship to Microsoft Teams. This relationship has grown into Microsoft Teams. I thought it was a great one. But with X and Elon Musk, I think the Sam Altman and Elon Musk, geez, these guys are so childish. It's
What's your take on it?
I think he's bluffing, Sam Altman. I think it's very difficult to build a good, like you just said, it's very difficult to build a very good social media competitor. The fact that you think just because software like you can build it doesn't mean you will have followers. But are you on BlueSky? I wanted to know that. Are you on BlueSky? No, neither am I. Why are we not on BlueSky?
What is BlueSky?
It's the X competitor that is open source-ish and whatever, not centralized, decentralized. Maybe not open source, I'm not sure, but it's decentralized, BlueSky.
No, I haven't.
It's one of those things where everybody says, I will never go into this restaurant again. And then you just order takeaway from that restaurant after you've been treated horribly by the waiter. It's sort of the same thing when you say X is run by a fascist and I'm never going on X again. And then they're just lurking. Or they delete their account. You didn't get that on LinkedIn, that everybody was deleting their X account saying, I'm leaving X after the elections. I can't stand
No, that's
Elon
so
Musk.
Dramatic. Why would you leave it? I mean, it's just
my Dutch network still does that. They share it on LinkedIn that they've left X.
Do you remember that Netflix documentary Broken? It basically covered the social media bias that's created between certain networks and the people that you follow. And so I think maybe that's why you've seen that and I haven't. because the people around you are so anti-Trump.
Yeah, I mean, that rabbit hole, that's basically split up because my network is the US, Europe, and Asia. On LinkedIn, I can actually see that. And guess where the anti-Trump venom is from? It's very much from the Dutch side, especially.
Yeah.
Also Belgians, Germans, very fanatic Germans against Trump. And I still think with Elon Musk, you know his political convictions, and you can then decide whatever you want to do. With many other companies whose products I use, I have no idea what the political affiliations is, and I'm not going to ask. So I cannot use an iPhone. I don't know what Tim Cook's convictions are. I think it's taking it a little step too far for me personally.
You have to separate the founder from the product sometimes, and it's really hard to do, especially in tech. We spoke about this in one of the first few episodes, is that all of the strongest tech projects have a strong founder presence. But this is where it kind of, it's a double-edged sword,
In closing, I have two things from my end. One is we have to watch this whole trial that's happening now in the US. I don't know if it's called a trial, whatever, these congressional hearings about Meta and all this stuff leaking every week now. But it's sort of under the radar because of all the tariff news about all the things that Mark Zuckerberg was emailing to his adjutants.
Really?
Yeah, it's very
completely
interesting what's
missed
leaking
that.
out. Yeah, it's outside your rabbit hole. Like it's on the other side of the spectrum, probably my spectrum. But that's really something we should follow. Why they bought Instagram and why they didn't buy Snap and all those kind of things.
Yeah.
And I don't think they're going to break up Facebook, but maybe they'll be fine. Google, on the other hand, may be broken up on the ad tech side because it's now deemed for the second time by U.S. courts to be holding a monopoly in ad tech, which sounds boring, but it is important. The thing I want to look out for over next week is what happens with Nvidia. They took a 5.5 billion charge because they can't ship their chips to China enough. There's more demand that they are allowed to ship by US regulations. It is something that hurt because the stock price fell I think it dropped $25 from 110. It was just at the price I bought it at. And it was at 112. I kid you not. I bought it 113. And now it's back at 90 or 85. I didn't even look. I just got it.
You didn't sell?
I didn't sell. I'm waiting. I'm long. I'm bullish. You didn't sell Solana. I didn't sell Nvidia. I'm bullish. I'm bullish on Nvidia long term. Nvidia all the way. Those are the things I had. What a moment. Let's go.
I'll see you guys next week. Thanks for joining. Like, subscribe,
comment, subscribe. Share.
Sign up to our newsletter. See you next week.
See you next week. Bye-bye.
NFA Podcast with Nish and Fraggers, all things crypto tech and Web3 markets, trends, and analysis, but not financial advice.